The world had gotten used to silence from the stars. After the initial chaos of discovering extraterrestrial life, Earth's governments banded together under a single policy: neutrality. No matter what war broke out across the galaxy, Earth would stay out of it. That's how it had been for the last 12 years. Neutrality kept the skies clean, the cities standing, and the people, mostly, safe. Alec Darrow remembered the day the first alien envoy landed in Geneva like it was yesterday. He was just a junior tech officer then, assigned to a security post outside the talks. Even back then, he could feel it. The tension. The superiority dripping off the 7-foot-tall insectoid delegate from the coalition. Like humans were house pets lucky not to be stepped on. The coalition wanted Earth's soldiers, factories, and resource-rich oceans. In exchange, they offered protection and a seat on the Galactic Council. But Earth had seen too many empires rise and rot. Politicians said no. The people cheered, and the war between alien empires raged on without them. Alec climbed through the ranks, became head of tactical threat analysis for Earth Defense Command. He had a wife back then, a kid. Neutrality gave him peace. Until the coalition screwed up. It happened at 3:42 a.m. Pacific time. Alec was asleep when the sirens hit. His comm lit up, every screen in his quarters flashing red. One word in bold letters: impact. He stumbled into the war room barefoot, still half dreaming, but the faces staring at him weren't asleep. They were frozen. A coalition cruiser, running from a Dominion pursuit fleet, had made a blind jump. That wasn't uncommon. Ships escaping death would often jump without proper coordinates. The universe was big enough to disappear in. But not that night. Instead of landing in deep space or some asteroid belt, the ship came out just 32 kilometers above Los Angeles. The hull disintegrated in the atmosphere. The explosion lit the sky from Nevada to the Pacific. Thousands died. Fires spread for miles. Half the West Coast went dark, and the coalition ship's black box confirmed it. No intent, no target, just desperation, just a mistake. But that didn't matter to the families who lost everything. Alec stood silent as the room erupted in arguments. The president's voice screamed through the screen, "I want answers, not excuses," while generals talked retaliation, sanctions, demands. But none of it meant anything. Because deep down, Alec knew something had shifted. Earth was neutral. But that was before alien shrapnel tore through homes, before innocent lives burned because two foreign empires were too busy fighting each other to care where their wreckage landed. He stared at the image of the blast zone. A part of him refused to look away. His son's school was in that red circle. He hadn't heard from his wife. He hadn't heard from his boy. The sun hadn't yet risen over the smoldering remains of Los Angeles when Alec Darrow stood alone in front of the blackened horizon. Helicopters buzzed overhead. Sirens screamed in every direction. Ash floated down like cursed snow, catching in his hair, sticking to his lashes. But he didn't blink. He couldn't. The air reeked of melted steel, scorched flesh, and fuel. Emergency workers moved through the wreckage like ghosts. Half the city was gone. Buildings flattened like they were never there. Roads split open, swallowing cars whole. Children's backpacks lay scattered among the debris. Most of them were empty now. The kids had been vaporized in their sleep. Alec's chest tightened as he stepped over a fallen street sign. His boots crunched glass and bone. His wife's phone hadn't pinged since the blast. His son's school was now a crater. He was supposed to be detached. Tactical. A man who made decisions based on cold calculation. That's what Earth Defense Command trained him for. Think with logic. Act with purpose. But all the logic in the world didn't matter when you were staring at a swing set twisted around a traffic light. He dropped to his knees beside it, choking on the dust and smoke. His body trembled, not from the cold, but from the weight of realization. They were gone. All of them. The coalition's mistake had ripped out the one piece of peace he had left. Alec didn't cry, not yet. The tears were too deep, buried beneath layers of fury. What rose instead was a quiet, controlled hatred, the kind of rage that didn't scream. It planned. Behind him, Colonel Whitlock stepped out of a command vehicle, her uniform spotless, her expression hard as titanium. "We've confirmed 43,000 casualties," she said. "Estimates going higher." Alec didn't respond. Whitlock crouched beside him. "This isn't just a tragedy, it's a turning point. You know that, right?" He nodded slowly, eyes still fixed on the horizon. "They'll call it an accident," she continued. "They'll say they didn't mean to. But intentions don't matter anymore." He finally looked at her. "Are we responding?" She hesitated. Command's in chaos. The Council's pushing for more investigation before any military response. Alec stood, wiping his hands on his jacket. "We don't need an investigation. We need a message." She stared at him, and for a moment she didn't see the analyst or the tactician. She saw a soldier. "You're not wrong," she said, "but the President needs to understand one thing," Alec cut her off. "Earth's been quiet long enough. We built our fences. We stayed out of their wars. We didn't ask for this. But they brought the war here." He stepped past her, toward the mobile command unit. "Get me a secure line to Geneva, and get me the Director of Strategic Offense. We're done playing neutral." In the following days, Earth trembled, not from explosions, but from decisions. The news spread like wildfire. Every major city aired the footage of the impact. Every station played interviews with scorched survivors, desperate mothers, and burned firefighters who spoke of a firestorm that couldn't be natural. It wasn't war. It was genocide by negligence. Coalition representatives issued formal apologies. They called the ship's crash a navigational misfortune during emergency retreat. They promised aid, relief, reparations. But it was too late for reparations. Too late for peace. Alec sat in the war room, surrounded by Earth's highest-ranking officers. The President's face was pale and drawn on the central display, her voice brittle from lack of sleep. "We have two options," she said. "We escalate, or we solidify our neutrality and push for compensation." Alec leaned forward. "If we back down now, we tell every race in the galaxy that Earth is just another dirtball they can piss on. This wasn't an act of war. Fine. But it was an act of negligence so catastrophic it cost us a city. You want compensation? They can keep their credits." He clicked a remote. The screen behind him changed to satellite footage, hundreds of alien warships streaking across nearby star systems. Coalition and Dominion vessels clashing just 3 jumps from the solar system. "They're bringing the war closer every month," Alec continued. "What happens when the next ship jumps into orbit? What if it's a Dominion missile cruiser instead of a runaway Coalition junker?" The room fell silent. "Neutrality doesn't protect us anymore," he said. "It just paints a target on our back." Someone muttered, "So what do you suggest?" Alec answered without pause. "We build, we arm, and we hit them where it hurts. Not with full war, not yet, but with precision. Make them feel what we felt. A pain they won't forget." The President folded her hands. "You're talking about launching a strike." "I'm talking about sending a message." The operation was called Echo Dagger. Simple mission: infiltrate a Coalition comms relay station on the fringe of Sector D7. No civilians, minimal risk, but it controlled a major portion of their battlefield communication grid. Alec led the team personally, 12 of Earth's most elite soldiers. No flags, no insignias, just shadows. They dropped onto the barren moon in total silence, under a cold, red sky. Alec's boots sank into the dust as he scanned the horizon. No guards visible. The aliens had grown arrogant. The relay tower stretched into the sky like a skeletal finger. They moved quickly, disabling the sensors, hacking the control systems. Alec stood inside the command center 30 minutes later, watching the feed of coalition warships blink offline one by one. They didn't destroy the tower. They corrupted it, rewired its signals to spread misinformation, redirect fleets, interrupt emergency calls. They made the coalition blind in half the war zone. When they were done, they vanished, like ghosts. Within 48 hours, 3 coalition fleets were ambushed by Dominion forces. Thousands died. Their command structure faltered. No one traced it back to Earth. But the coalition suspected. They sent emissaries. Threats cloaked in diplomatic language. They demanded access to Earth's military files. They reminded Earth of its non-aggression pact. Earth sent back one reply. "We are reconsidering our position." Behind closed doors, Alec pushed harder. He met with weapons manufacturers. He ordered orbital defense satellites activated after a decade of sleep. He greenlit black projects previously frozen by Earth's peace doctrine. He wasn't just preparing for defense. He was preparing for war. Back in his quarters, Alec sat alone. A single hollow frame blinked softly on his desk. A family photo, his wife's smile, his son's wide grin, missing a front tooth. He stared at it, jaw tight, heart stone-heavy. He didn't need revenge. He needed clarity, purpose. His family had been part of a peaceful Earth, a soft, naive world that thought neutrality was safety, that Earth died with them. And now, the galaxy was going to meet the Earth that was left behind. The diplomatic fallout came fast. Alec watched from behind the tinted glass of the observation wing as the coalition delegation was escorted through Earth Defense Command. They moved like predators, tall and slim in their glistening armor, chittering in that smug cadence of theirs, like they already knew no one would touch them. Their lead diplomat, a creature called Jaren Vex, wore a silver sash as a sign of peaceful intent. Alec thought it looked more like a leash. "We're not here to threaten," Jaren began, once seated in the conference chamber. "We are here to address troubling rumors. It would be unfortunate if Earth were found guilty of aiding our enemies." Alec leaned forward, his expression unreadable. "Unfortunate like dropping a battleship on Los Angeles?" Jaren's mandibles clicked. "We have already expressed regret for that incident." "Regret doesn't bring back families," Alec said, voice low and even. "And we don't deal in regret anymore. We deal in facts." He tossed a file across the table. It slid to a stop in front of Jaren. Inside, satellite images of Dominion ships ambushing coalition forces, logs showing scrambled comms, Earth's classified operation signatures, scrubbed clean of any identifiers. It was a silent confession, a calculated taunt. Jaren tapped one long finger on the folder. "You're playing a dangerous game, human." "No," Alec said, standing. "You are. You just haven't realized Earth changed the rules." Public sentiment had shifted too. At first, Earth's population was hesitant. Grief was still fresh. But pain has a half-life, and rage fills the vacuum left behind. Alec walked through downtown Atlanta 2 weeks later, the city alive with protests and parades. Massive banners read "Never Again" and "Burn the Stars." Even the once dormant factories of Detroit and Osaka had been revived, forging war machines not seen since Earth's last global conflict. Still, not everyone was on Alec's side. The United Earth Council, especially the civilian branches, grew nervous. They had been built on peace talks and trade routes, not military doctrine. Alec was moving fast, too fast, some said. "Commander Darrow is overstepping," said Councilman Greaves in a live interview. We do not escalate on emotion. We cannot let vengeance become policy. Alec saw the broadcast in silence. He knew Greaves meant well, but well-meaning men built nothing but graves when the enemy didn't play by the rules. A week after Greaves's speech, the Dominion broke through a coalition blockade near Tau Epsilon. Desperate and brutal, they glassed 3 planets, killing billions. One of those worlds had an Earth-sponsored research outpost. 47 human scientists, unarmed, vaporized. Greaves resigned quietly the next morning. Inside Earth Defense Command's secure underground level, Alec stood before Project Legion. It wasn't a single weapon. It was an entire doctrine. Thousands of autonomous drones, hyper-adaptive AIs, satellite-linked artillery, and orbital defense grids now orbiting Earth like a cage of knives. Engineers called it overkill. Alec called it insurance. "Status?" he asked as he walked the command line. Lieutenant Renner, young and hard-eyed, saluted. "Phase 2 is complete. Legion is operational. All targets can be acquired within a 20-second delay." Alec looked up at the holographic globe above them, each red dot representing a coalition asset within Earth's retaliatory range. They glowed like cancer. Renner hesitated. "Sir, there's chatter. Some in the outer systems are nervous. They say Earth's acting more like the Dominion than a neutral world." Alec nodded slowly. "Good." Renner blinked. "Sir?" "They should be nervous," Alec said. "Fear is the only language they all speak. We tried diplomacy. We showed restraint. Look where it got us." He paused, voice dropping to something almost reverent. "This time we write the message in fire." It wasn't just Earth anymore. Other human colonies across Mars, Europa, and the outer asteroid belts started following suit. Quietly at first, then openly. Independent militias rose up. Old ships were pulled from museums and fitted with rail cannons. Spaceports began broadcasting encrypted warnings. No alien vessels beyond this point. The galaxy was watching, and Earth was no longer the quiet observer in the crowd. Alec sat alone in the war room one evening, lights dimmed, listening to an intercepted coalition transmission. His tech team had decrypted the fear buried in the alien officer's tone. "They've awakened something primitive," the voice said. "They do not fear death. They do not ask for permission. Earth has become uncontainable." He poured himself a glass of whiskey. No ice, just heat. Primitive? They had no idea. Then came the real test. Coalition forces struck one of Earth's early warning outposts stationed on a drifting rock in Sector 5-9. No survivors. Earth Defense Command intercepted the attack logs. It wasn't an accident this time. It was a test. A probe. A message. They didn't think Earth would respond. They were wrong. Within 36 hours, Alec deployed Operation Pale Blade. 5 stealth-class corvettes loaded with precision kinetic warheads. Target, Sil Vorn, a minor coalition military production moon. Not a capital. Not a city. But a statement. The attack happened in silence. No warning, no calls, just impact. Hundreds of automated drone factories collapsed into magma. The moon's orbit destabilized. Supply chains buckled. Thousands of coalition soldiers died before they even understood who hit them. The Dominion sent a congratulatory message to Earth within the hour. The coalition didn't respond. They didn't have to. They had gotten the message. So had everyone else. But as Earth's power grew, so did the pressure. The inner circle around Alec started to fracture, not out of disloyalty, but fear. A good kind of fear. The kind that asked hard questions. Colonel Whitlock confronted him late one night after a strategy session. "You've done what no one thought possible," she said. "You've turned Earth from a target into a weapon. But where does it end, Alec?" He didn't answer. "You lost your family," she said softly. "So did a lot of us. But revenge doesn't build a future. He looked at her, tired but unshaken. "This isn't revenge," he said. "This is survival with a backbone." She stepped closer. "There's a line, Alec. If we cross it, if we start looking like them, what's left of us?" He turned back to the screen, where a coalition fleet shimmered in orbit around a gas giant, unaware they were already being tracked. He muttered, "They showed us what happens when we hesitate." I won't make that mistake again. The council chambers hadn't seen a declaration of war in nearly 80 years. Yet here they were, every delegate from Earth's surviving governments present, silent, as Alec Darrow stepped up to the platform. The room felt like it was holding its breath. "This is not a declaration of ambition," he began, voice steady. "We are not seeking conquest. We are not after territory. But after what happened in Los Angeles, after what happened at Outpost 7, we cannot continue to pretend neutrality is safety." Alec took a slow breath. "The coalition has proven reckless, indifferent, and when they killed our people, they called it a mistake." He scanned the room. Hardened military men, terrified politicians, and too many scarred civilians filled the rows. "Earth did not start this war, but we will finish it." The screen behind him came alive, showing images of ruined cities, burned colonies, mass graves dug on Martian soil. "As of this moment, the United Earth Defense Command is launching full-scale military operations against coalition targets deemed hostile or negligent. We will strike surgically, with overwhelming force, until the galaxy understands. Earth will not be collateral damage." He paused again. Not because he needed to, but because the silence that followed made the message ring harder. The vote was almost immediate. The motion passed, unanimous. Earth was at war. The news spread faster than light. Across human colonies, people gathered around holoscreens, some cheering, others stunned. Mars declared full support. The Jovian colonies, usually slow to act, pledged troops within hours. Even fringe settlements in the Kuiper Belt began training local militias. This wasn't politics anymore. This was personal. On Earth, recruitment tripled overnight. The military academies reactivated emergency programs. Combat veterans too old for field duty began training new conscripts. Shipyards that had gone silent decades ago roared to life again. Factories didn't close. Lights didn't go off. Earth was awake. Alec stood atop a landing platform 2 days later, watching the first wave of assault carriers rise through the clouds like steel angels with fire in their bellies. He didn't smile. He couldn't. He'd buried that part of himself the night his son's school turned to ash. Colonel Whitlock stepped up beside him, helmet under one arm. She had volunteered to lead the spearhead into coalition-controlled territory. "I still think you're pushing too fast," she said. "This isn't a small war. We're up against an empire." Alec didn't look at her. Empires fall. Ask history. "I have," she replied. "Most of them burn everyone with them when they do." Operation Iron Howl launched with 6 Earth-class destroyers, 4 corvettes, and over 2,000 combat drones. The target? Varnus 12, a major coalition relay planet nestled deep within their border network. It wasn't just symbolic. It was infrastructure, strategy, disruption. And Alec had one objective: total blackout. The battle started with a hack. Earth's tech teams slipped into the planetary firewall using an AI construct that mimicked coalition command traffic. By the time the coalition defense system realized the signals weren't their own, the skies were already bleeding. Drones swarmed like hornets. Destroyers rained hell. The defenders fought hard. They were veterans, trained to hold the line, but they weren't prepared for Earth's fury. Colonel Whitlock led the drop team herself. Ground-to-space transmissions caught her orders. Fast, brutal, no hesitation. Alec listened to the feed from the command center on Earth. He said nothing as the sounds of war crackled through the speakers. Gunfire, screaming, the unmistakable roar of fusion cannons leveling coalition bunkers. It took 6 hours to secure the planet. Another 2 to wipe every comm tower clean. Varnus 12 was dark. Coalition logistics stuttered, and Earth's name now rang out in every quadrant. No longer a backwater planet, but a power to be feared. But Alec wasn't done. He turned to his inner circle, eyes cold. Now we bleed them. The next targets weren't military, not directly. Alec authorized strikes on coalition fuel depots, trade stations, and transit hubs, facilities with dual civilian uses. They weren't off limits anymore. That decision cracked the Earth Council. Half the civilian leaders accused Alec of overreach, of abandoning Earth's principles. Alec didn't flinch. They abandoned ours when they flew a ship into a city of children, he snapped. There are no clean wars, only survivors. Behind closed doors, some whispered about his mental state. Others worried he was becoming the very thing he swore to fight. But the majority still backed him. Earth was winning, and winning had a way of silencing dissent. 3 months in, Dominion forces sent envoys, not to make peace, to form an alliance. The Dominion hated Earth too, but they hated the coalition more. And now they saw value in Earth's madness, its unpredictability. They offered tech, coordinates, enemy fleet positions, even access to weapons Earth had never dreamed of. Alec met their emissary personally, inside a deep lunar bunker, far from surveillance. The Dominion envoy, a cold-blooded serpent-like creature named Rathok, smiled with too many teeth. "You are efficient," he hissed. "Your fury burns bright. We admire that." Alec didn't smile. "I'm not interested in admiration." "No," Rathok said, "but perhaps you are interested in opportunity." The offer was clear. Help the Dominion crush the coalition, and they'd leave Earth alone, rich, protected, and feared. Alec didn't answer right away. He knew what accepting meant. It meant using monsters to kill other monsters. It meant saving Earth at the cost of what little soul it had left. He walked away from the meeting with a simple message. "We'll consider it." But that night, alone in his quarters, Alec finally opened the encrypted file he'd avoided for months. The last messages recovered from Los Angeles before the blast. Static, sirens, cries, and then his son's voice. "Dad, are you there? Something's happening. The sky is... it's red, it's loud." Then silence. That was the last thing he ever said. Alec sat motionless, fingers trembling as the screen faded to black. His rage hadn't dulled, but the weight of it now had a shape. He wasn't leading Earth to victory. He was dragging it through hell, hoping something clean would come out the other side. But deep down, he wasn't sure anymore. Was this revenge? Or survival? He couldn't tell the difference. Alec Darrow had made Earth powerful. No one could deny that. From a planet once mocked by galactic elites as a non-participant dirt rock, Earth had risen like a beast with a wounded heart and a loaded gun. The Coalition's battle maps now marked Earth-controlled zones in red. Red for danger. Red for loss. Red for what came when you forgot that humans were not to be ignored. But behind that glow of triumph, something darker festered. The Coalition was bleeding, but not dead. The Dominion was assisting, but not loyal. And Alec? He was winning a war he no longer recognized. The Dominion deal became official under an operation codenamed Ash Pact. Quietly ratified in the shadows of the Lunar Command Complex, the pact gave Earth access to a terrifying arsenal: quantum disruptors, cloaking satellites, virus-class AI capable of ripping through defense networks in milliseconds. In return, Earth had to take out the Coalition's Central Communications Citadel on Threxus Prime, a massive planetary installation buried beneath a frozen tundra, shielded by orbital cannons and protected by thousands of veteran soldiers. It was a suicide mission. So Alec sent everyone. The largest coordinated assault Earth had ever mustered. 40 warships, 12 ground battalions, 30,000 troops, not counting the drones. And he led it himself. Some said he wanted to die there. Others believed he wanted to make sure it burned. Maybe both were true. The battle lasted 17 hours. The approach was blood. Alec's fleet lost 3 destroyers just breaching the orbit. The drop was fire. Ships shot down mid-descent. Soldiers vaporized before they touched ground. The tundra exploded with railgun blasts and seismic mines. But humans didn't stop. They clawed, bled, and surged through the snow, turning every inch of ice into graveyards for alien defenders. Alec stormed the citadel doors himself, pulse rifle in hand, flanked by Earth's elite. When they broke through, they didn't negotiate. They annihilated. The Coalition Command Center was reduced to molten steel and burning flesh. The primary signal dish, capable of controlling half the Coalition war fleets, was obliterated in a precision strike Alec ordered himself. The last transmission sent from Threxus Prime was Earth's symbol, a scorched blue planet circled by fire. Dominion broadcasts echoed with praise. Earth is the sword of vengeance, they called it. But on the ground, the soldiers didn't feel like heroes. They felt like butchers. 2 weeks later, protests started. Not from the coalition, not from outsiders, from within. Veterans returned with hollow eyes, talking about children caught in the crossfire, civilians frozen in bunkers that Earth torched without warning, biofields that turned lakes into poison. Leaked footage showed Alec giving the go-ahead for the strike, even after intel suggested non-combatants were in the lower sectors. The council demanded an inquiry. Alec refused to appear. He stayed underground, deep in the lunar strategic nexus, where no politician could touch him. He issued orders. He watched the stars burn. And he said nothing. Colonel Whitlock, once Alec's fiercest ally, could no longer remain silent. She stormed into the nexus one night, pushing past security like she still wore command armor. Alec was alone, his face lit by the glow of a dozen live feeds. Earth's expanding military reach, real-time updates from Dominion channels, casualties rolling in by the minute. "Are you even human anymore?" she snapped. Alec didn't look at her. "This isn't a game, Sarah." "You ordered a massacre," she said. "There were kids, families. You torched the entire sector without warning." "They were part of the machine," he replied coldly. "That machine killed my son." "That machine isn't everyone," she shouted. "You're turning Earth into the very thing we claimed to stand against." His hands tightened into fists. "We were neutral. We were quiet. And we were ignored. Now they listen. Now they run." "They fear us," she said, voice trembling. "And fear doesn't build alliances. It doesn't build peace. It builds monsters." For a moment, Alec said nothing. Then let them fear me. Word spread of Whitlock's resignation. Soldiers whispered that the war hero had finally broken ranks. Some called her a traitor. Others called her the last sane officer Earth had left. The council held emergency meetings. Debates raged. But Alec's support held for now. He had made Earth untouchable. And that kind of power, even when wrapped in blood, was hard to surrender. Then, the Dominion made their real move. They offered Alec something no Earth leader had ever been given: a seat at the Dominion Council, a voice in galactic policy, the promise of co-rulership over conquered coalition sectors. But the price? Subjugation. Not of Earth, but of Earth's allies. Mars, Europa, Ceres, any human colony that questioned Dominion law would be silenced. Earth would be supreme, but only if it kept others beneath it. It was a test. The final one. And Alec didn't answer right away. He stared at the stars for 3 nights. No sleep, no food, just silence. He remembered his wife's voice, his son's laughter, their apartment in L.A. the piano, the smell of burnt toast in the morning. He had traded all of it for victory. And now the galaxy wanted him to trade what little humanity he had left. When the Dominion emissary returned, Alec met him in the war chamber. "You offer Earth power," Alec said. "You think that's what we've been chasing?" The emissary smiled with venom. "Isn't it?" "No," Alec whispered. "We've been chasing silence, safety, the right to exist without permission." He stepped forward. "You think we'll kneel now that we're armed? You think we'll bow just because you brought us weapons?" The emissary's grin faltered. "We're not your sword," Alec said. "We're the fire you can't put out." Then he activated the kill code. 12 Dominion operatives embedded across Earth's command hubs died instantly. Neural implants scrambled. Their spies, their leverage, gone. "I reject your offer," Alec said. "You'll make an enemy of us," the emissary hissed. "You already did." The room went dark. War with the Dominion had begun. But this time Earth was not the underdog. It was the storm. War with the Dominion didn't begin with a declaration. It began with silence, the kind that stretched across space like a vacuum, swallowing stars and stripping meaning from all noise. Alec Darrow knew it well. That silence came before every storm, every betrayal, every ambush he'd survived since this war began. And now it was here again. The Dominion pulled back their envoys. All communication ceased. No trade ships, no diplomats, no threats, just space and quiet. Within a week, Earth's border satellites began to ping unidentified objects creeping along the edges of the Kuiper Belt, fast, shielded, and moving in synchronized silence. They were scouting, plotting, preparing. And Alec knew what came next. Back on Earth, Alec stood before the Central Command Assembly, his voice sharper than ever. "They didn't strike because I insulted them. They didn't retaliate because I rejected their power. They're waiting," he said, tapping a map of Earth's outer colonies. "They're watching us tighten our defense. They want us to sweat. They want us spread thin. Then they'll strike where we least expect." The council wasn't listening like before. Too many empty seats. Too many members on leave. Too many dissenters now considered suspect. And those who remained stared at Alec not with admiration, but doubt. "Commander Darrow," one civilian voice said, respectfully, "how long can we fight the Dominion and the Coalition at the same time?" Alec looked directly at him. "As long as it takes." "People are starving on Mars," another added. "Ceres has water riots. We're conscripting teenagers now. Is this still about protecting Earth? Or about proving something?" That hit harder than it should have. Alec didn't answer right away. He could feel it in the room, loyalty draining like heat from a dying star. "We were dragged into this war by their mistake," he said finally. "We stayed neutral. We begged to be left alone. They gave us fire instead." He leaned forward. "So now they'll burn with us." But burning has a cost. Earth's outer colonies were crumbling. Trade was gone. Power grids were failing. Medical supplies scarce. The Mars Authority issued a coded message to Earth Command warning of civil unrest. And for the first time in months, Earth Defense Command received a message from within. Encrypted. Anonymous. One sentence. "He's going too far." Alec wasn't shocked. He had expected it. What shook him was the signature attached to the second message that followed, Colonel Whitlock. It wasn't even subtle. She was rallying support behind the scenes, not to depose Alec, not yet, but to split Earth's command structure, to create a parallel council, one dedicated to diplomacy, refugee support, and possible peace talks. Talks with the coalition, talks with the Dominion. It was betrayal, wrapped in compassion. The kind of betrayal that would gain traction because it didn't wear a mask. It wore a uniform Alec had once respected. Alec summoned her. She came without a guard, without armor, without fear. "You knew this would happen," she said simply. Alec said nothing for a while, just studied her face. Still stern, but wearier now. Older in ways no surgery could hide. "Are you building a government or a rebellion?" he finally asked. "I'm building a future," she replied. "One where Earth doesn't need you as a weapon." "You think I enjoy this?" "No," she said. "I think you lost the part of yourself that could see any other path." He turned away. She stepped closer. "You don't sleep. You don't talk to anyone who doesn't report directly to you. You've forgotten what you're fighting for." Alec's voice dropped low. "You think I forgot my wife, my son? I think you buried them under a pile of bodies you stopped counting." Silence. Then Alec walked to the holomap, where red markers bled across the stars. Dominion fleets encircling Earth. Coalition pockets regrouping. "I can't let you divide command," he said. "I won't let you destroy what's left of us," she replied. They didn't shake hands when she left. They didn't need to. War had come to Earth's leadership, the kind with no trenches, just whispers, data leaks, and fading loyalty. The Dominion struck 4 days later. Not with fleets, but with plague. Bioengineered, viral, smart. A targeted contagion delivered via stolen Dominion aid ships that Earth's outer colonies mistakenly welcomed, too desperate to question. Symptoms: neurodisruption, blood acidification, hallucinations, organ collapse, mortality rate 92%. It hit Europa first, then Callisto, then Mars. Hospitals failed within hours. Governors called for help. Earth Defense Command scrambled med teams, but they were too few, too late. It was a biological siege, and it was Alec's fault. He had refused the Dominion. Now the Dominion had responded with a weapon Earth couldn't shoot back at. Alec watched from a sealed biochamber as med drones broadcast the feed. A Mars school shelter packed with dying children, their eyes bleeding, their screams muted only by internal sound buffers. His knees buckled, his fists clenched. It was happening again. Not to him, but because of him. A familiar voice echoed in his mind. There are no clean wars, only survivors. He had believed that, had lived it, but now there were no survivors either. Colonel Whitlock stepped onto the public channel the next day. She spoke not as a rebel, but as a soldier. "As of now, I'm establishing an independent crisis response council," she said. "We're redirecting military ships to evacuate infected zones. We will establish contact with any galactic power willing to send aid, regardless of allegiance." The broadcast spread like wildfire. Mars joined her, then Europa, then the Ceres belt. And with each colony, Alec's grip cracked further. Earth was split, not by bombs, but by the truth. Alec stood before the war map, now a tangled mess of blinking signals. Some marked loyal, some marked neutral, some marked rogue. He had turned Earth into a sword, but in his hands, that sword had become a noose. His communications chief entered quietly. "Sir," she said, "Dominion flagship entering Sol system. They're not cloaked, they're not firing, they're broadcasting." "To who?" She hesitated. "To Whitlock's network." Alec stepped forward. "Patch it through." The screen flickered. A familiar face appeared. Rathok, the Dominion emissary. Calm, confident. Earth's splinter faction has shown willingness. They have agreed to temporary ceasefires in plague zones. We will honor that. A pause. But our war with Darrow's regime continues. A direct split. Two Earths, one fighting, one bargaining. And for the first time since the war began, Alec Darrow stood alone. Truly. Finally. Alone. The world Alec Darrow built was falling apart, fast, messy, and without mercy. He watched from a balcony above Earth Defense Command's orbital tower as the lights flickered across the surface below. Whole cities had gone black, energy grids offline, riots blooming like infections, and once loyal governors declaring allegiance to Whitlock's new Civil Recovery Authority. In orbit, the skies were just as divided. Earth's own fleets, ships Alec had commissioned, crews he had trained, now bore new identifiers. They didn't fire on Earth defense installations, not yet. But they didn't take orders anymore either. They had chosen Whitlock. Inside the command center, the mood was brittle. His closest advisors were gone, either dead, reassigned, or vanished into the growing shadow government building its own structure of power on Mars. What remained were soldiers. Quiet, efficient, loyal, yes, but loyal in the way one follows orders when nothing else remains. Lieutenant Renner stood at his side, pale and gaunt. 13 colonies have pulled communications with Earth Central. They're calling it isolation protocol. They've stopped responding to our alerts entirely. Alec said nothing. Renner hesitated, then added, "Sir, they're saying you're unstable." Alec turned to him slowly. "And are you one of they, Lieutenant?" Renner didn't flinch. "I don't know, sir." Alec gave a humorless smile. Honesty. Rare thing these days. He looked back to the monitors. Dominion ships still hung at the edge of Sol, unmoving. A threat in plain sight, but untouched for now. Whitlock's ceasefire held, and even the Dominion, perhaps amused by Earth's internal fracture, abided it. Alec had pushed so hard for war. Now no one wanted to follow him through it. His private chambers were silent, stripped of decoration. He sat at a small desk, no guards outside the door, no aides. He didn't need protection anymore. No one wanted to assassinate Alec Darrow. Not because they loved him, but because they didn't fear him anymore. His hands shook slightly as he reviewed intercepted broadcasts from Mars. Whitlock had set up a mirror to his government, health agencies, military chains, even education reforms. And unlike him, her messages came with hope, rebuilding, redemption, the kind of language people clung to after years of blood. His voice had lost its power. He had spoken in fire for so long, people no longer saw the smoke. Then came the breaking point. A ship docked at Orbital Station Blackgate, an Earth freighter stripped of insignia, emergency beacons disabled. It was supposed to be a medical evac ship, carrying infected patients from Europa. Alec was in the war room when the alarm hit. He watched, breath stuck in his throat, as the ship's transponder blinked green. Friendly. Then it exploded. A fireball consumed half the station. Hundreds dead. The shockwave shattered 2 adjacent docks. Entire regiments stationed on Blackgate were gone. The footage showed the freighter's last flight logs, falsified. Not a plague ship. A decoy. Whitlock's rebels denied involvement. Dominion broadcasts called it a tragedy and condemned Earth's inability to control its own madness. Alec saw something else. He saw the end. He went off-grid for 3 days. No messages, no orders. Some thought he was dead. Others thought he was regrouping for a final, desperate assault. But Alec was somewhere else entirely. He took an unmarked dropship down to Los Angeles. The crater that had started everything was still cordoned off by metal fences and black military tents. But no one stopped him. He walked through the ruins like a man looking for pieces of himself. He found none. No ghosts, no signs, just silence. Then, at the edge of the blast zone, he saw the wall. Names. Thousands of names etched into synthetic stone. His son's name was there. Milo Darrow. Age 8. Underneath, a message. We remember not the flames, but what they took from us. His hand hovered over the engraving. This was what the fire had started for. This was what it had all been about. But now Milo's death had become just another name in a longer list Alec had made with his own hands. He dropped to his knees. Not in grief, but in clarity. The war had stolen him, and the only way to end it might be to steal something back. He returned to orbit with a new directive. No speeches, no commands, just a direct message, encrypted and sent only to one terminal. 2. Colonel Whitlock. Subject, surrender. Her reply came within hours. I'm listening. They met in neutral space, not Earth, not Mars. A derelict station hovering between moons, gutted and dark, lit only by portable floodlights and the gravity of what they both carried. Alec stepped off his transport first. Whitlock stood waiting, arms crossed, not a weapon in sight. First time you've come unarmed in years, she said. I didn't come for a fight. No? She asked. Because that's all you ever brought with you. Alec nodded once. You were right. Whitlock's brow furrowed slightly. You said I buried them beneath a pile of bodies I stopped counting, Alec said. You were right. He took a breath. I thought making the galaxy fear us would protect Earth, that if they bled enough, they'd never come near again. They won't, she said. They'll destroy us first. He nodded again. I know. So why are we here? Because I want you to take command. She blinked. I've lost the war, he said. Not to the Dominion, not to the Coalition, to us, to what we became. He handed her a data slate, authorization codes, command overrides, everything. I don't expect forgiveness, he said. But I want Earth to have a chance. Whitlock stared at him like she was trying to see the boy he used to be before the fire took him. Then, slowly, she reached out and took the slate. Alec Darrow returned to Earth once more. Not in glory, not in chains, just a man walking home. Whitlock announced the transition of power publicly. No fanfare, no celebration, just a promise. From this day forward, Earth will not lead with fear, but with resolve. Dominion ships began to withdraw. The Coalition, too battered to respond, made no moves. Earth stood alone again. But for the first time in years, that didn't feel like a weakness. It felt like peace, fragile, barely breathing, but real. And Alec Darrow, architect of war, bearer of fire, watched it from a quiet field where no walls bore names and no skies burned red. For the first time since Milo's voice went silent, Alec cried. Not for loss, but for what might still be saved. Alec Darrow never returned to power. Not once. After he handed the slate to Whitlock and gave up control of Earth's military machine, he disappeared from the public eye like a ghost into fog. There were no statues built, no medals awarded, no governments named after him. He didn't want any of it. He barely wanted to be remembered. What he wanted, what he needed, was to be forgotten long enough to find out if Earth could survive without him. It turned out it could. Barely. Under Whitlock's guidance, Earth entered what historians would later call the Grey Restoration. Not quite peace, not quite war, more like recovery through exhaustion. The Dominion, though stung by Alec's defiance, had gotten what it wanted: chaos. But it had also suffered too many losses to risk full confrontation. It withdrew slowly, licking its wounds, and began focusing on internal expansion once again. The Coalition fared worse, fragmented, disgraced, left to rot in the sectors Earth's military had broken. It fractured into splinters, pirate clans, and rogue fleets that would haunt border systems for years, but never again threaten galactic dominance. Earth, bruised and bloodied, finally had breathing room. It used it to rebuild. Under Whitlock, former military ships became science vessels. Drop carriers turned into hospitals. Mars and Europa received emergency food shipments. Defense towers were recoded to scan for life-saving signals, not kill orders. The colonies began communicating again, hesitantly, then with hope. But Alec Darrow was nowhere to be found. Not in speeches, not in celebrations. He had become myth, whispers in mess halls and training academies. The man who burned the sky so we could see the stars. He had taken a small cabin deep in the Siberian wilderness, one of the few places on Earth still untouched by urban reclamation. No tech grid, no surveillance, just snow, silence, and sky. He didn't miss the war, but he didn't forget it either. Every night he lit a fire, sat on the porch, and remembered the names. Not the enemies, not the soldiers, but the innocent, the children, the scientists, the workers, the ones who never picked up a weapon but died anyway. They lived inside him now, carried without pride, carried with pain. One day, a ship landed near his cabin. Small, civilian, white. Alec stood on the porch as Colonel Whitlock stepped out, wearing civilian clothes. Her hair was shorter now, her posture lighter. She didn't salute. He didn't stand. They just looked at each other for a long, cold moment. Then she spoke. Had to reroute a lot of airspace permissions to find you. He gave a quiet smirk. I figured you'd stop trying after the second year. She walked up the porch steps, sat beside him, pulled out a small flask. I brought coffee. Real, no synth. He took it, sipped, nodded. Still better than mine. They sat in silence for a while, watching the forest shift in the wind. Then, finally, she asked, "Do you ever wish you'd let it all burn?" He didn't answer immediately. "I used to," he said at last, "but that was when I still believed vengeance was justice. And now? Now I know justice isn't loud. It's quiet, boring, fragile." She nodded slowly. "I'm leaving soon," she said. "Not from Earth, from leadership. We've got new faces. Young, smarter than us. Good. I wanted to see you before I go." Alec glanced sideways. "To say goodbye?" "No," she said. "To say, you were right, about some things." He exhaled. "You were too," he admitted. She smiled, faint and tired. "We both were. That's what made it so dangerous." They didn't talk much after that. She left before nightfall. He watched her ship rise into the cold sky, its engines humming softly like a lullaby. Then he went back inside. Years passed. The galaxy shifted. New factions rose. Alliances were tested. Earth remained cautious but respected. No longer feared, no longer ignored, just present. There were still battles, still flare-ups in border space. But the doctrine Alec had forced into existence had changed the way Earth responded. Never first, never blind, but never soft either. Peace wasn't permanent, but it was possible. And in Alec's final years, that was enough. He died on a morning like any other. Snow falling, sky gray, heart silent. He was buried in the same field where he had once stood, staring at the memorial wall in Los Angeles. His grave had no statue, just a small stone. 3 words. Let them remember. And beside it, etched into metal that would last through storms and silence, the only epitaph Alec ever approved. He spoke in fire so Earth could answer in peace. Across the stars, people remembered Alec Darrow differently. To some, he was a tyrant. To others, a protector. To most, a necessary evil in a time when Earth had no other voice. But to those who truly knew him, he was a man who had lost everything, and still fought for something bigger than himself, not because he believed he would win, but because he couldn't bear to let Earth lose again.